Scene 1, the drive through the storm. The rain had been falling for hours, not the kind that brings calm, but the kind that drowns the world in static and darkness. I was driving alone on Route 29, my windshield wipers slapping in a frantic rhythm, headlights slicing through sheets of silver. It was past midnight, and the storm made every road sign shimmer like ghosts. I was coming back from a work trip in Tennessee, heading home to Virginia. The highway was nearly empty except for the occasional 18-wheeler roaring past, throwing waves of dirty rainwater onto my windshield. The isolation felt heavy, like the storm had swallowed the world whole. My radio crackled through static, trying to hold onto a signal. I caught fragments of a local news broadcast, something about flooding, power outages, and then a phrase that froze me, multiple reports of a man walking along the interstate, soaked in blood. That was when I saw him. A figure, standing just beyond the guardrail, illuminated by my headlights for barely 2 seconds. His head tilted toward me as I passed, pale face, dark hair matted to his skull, and what looked like deep scratches all over his chest. My stomach dropped. I hit the brakes, hard. But when I looked back through the rain, he was gone. The road was empty, and yet, my rearview mirror caught something impossible, a reflection in the back seat. A face, pressed against the window, watching me. Scene 2, the cabin on Winding Creek. 3 years earlier, I spent a summer working for a logging company in northern Washington. We were stationed near Winding Creek, surrounded by miles of dense pine forest that seemed to hum with rain even when the sky was clear. Our company had rented a small cabin for us to stay in, no neighbors for miles, just woods and the sound of rushing water. It was peaceful at first, until the rain started that week. Endless, pounding rain. One night, the generator went out. The others were asleep, and I grabbed a flashlight to check the shed behind the cabin. The beam of light cut through the rain, but every few steps, I kept hearing something, not thunder, not branches snapping, it sounded like wet footsteps following me. I turned the light behind me, but the sound stopped. When I moved forward again, so did it. Always the same distance away. I reached the shed, yanked open the door, and my flashlight flickered. Inside, hanging from the rafters, were animal bones. Hundreds of them, small, brittle, picked clean. But what chilled me wasn't the bones. It was the walls, covered in mud-smeared handprints, too high for an animal, too human for comfort. And then a whisper came from behind me, low and wet like the rain itself. "Don't stay here." I ran back to the cabin, but when I looked at my coworkers' beds, every single one of them was empty. Their boots were gone, their things, gone. Only the muddy footprints led out into the storm. I never found them. Scene 3, the stranger at the window. It was a stormy night in Ohio, late autumn. I was 17, home alone while my parents were out visiting family. Our old farmhouse sat on a stretch of backroad surrounded by cornfields and nothing else. The wind made the old windows rattle like they were trying to escape the frames, and the rain came in sideways, drumming against the roof in a constant roar. I was watching a horror movie on my laptop, ironic, I guess, when I heard a single knock. Not on the door, on the window. At first, I thought it was the wind or a branch. But then it came again. 3 slow knocks. I muted my movie, heart pounding, and crept to the window. The curtains were drawn, but the shape behind them was unmistakable, a tall figure, standing just inches away on the other side of the glass. I grabbed the phone and dialed 911. Before I could even hit call, lightning flashed, and I saw him. A man, drenched in rain, face half covered in mud, eyes reflecting white in the flash. He smiled, or maybe grimaced, before the dark swallowed him again. The operator answered, but before I could speak, I heard the back door creak open. I dropped the phone. For the next few minutes, I hid in the hall closet, trying to control my breathing. The sound of footsteps squelched across the hardwood floor. He was inside. I could hear the rain dripping from his clothes. The footsteps stopped right outside the closet. The handle turned, just slightly, and then let go. When the police arrived 20 minutes later, the back door was wide open, and muddy prints led straight to the closet. But none led back out. Scene 4, the rain on Ashford Bridge. The last story happened just last year. I was working night security for a small construction company in rural Pennsylvania. My job was to guard equipment overnight at a bridge renovation site on Ashford Road. It was raining hard that night, the kind of downpour that blurs everything into motion. I parked the truck near the edge of the bridge and turned on the floodlights. The river below was roaring, swollen and violent from the storm. Around 2 a.m., I heard a woman crying. At first, it sounded distant, like it was carried by the wind. But then it grew louder, closer, until it felt like she was right beneath the bridge. I grabbed my flashlight and leaned over the railing. Nothing but the churning black water. But the voice was still there, echoing up from the depths. Then I saw something move, a pale shape, a hand breaking the surface, reaching. I radioed for backup, shouting that someone was in the river. I started down the embankment, slipping through the mud and rain, but when I reached the bottom, there was no one there. Only a soaked white dress, tangled in the reeds. When I picked it up, it was warm. That's when the floodlights above me went out. The rain turned heavier, almost deafening. And through the darkness, I heard her again, this time behind me. I turned around, and she was standing there, dripping wet, hair plastered to her face. Eyes completely black. She said just one thing. He never stopped for me. I stumbled backward, screaming into the radio, but it was nothing but static. The next flash of lightning blinded me, and when my vision cleared, she was gone. But her footprints, bare, wet, unmistakable, led up toward my truck. And that's where the story should end. But it doesn't, because when the rain falls hard enough, I still hear her voice whisper through the static of the radio, asking the same question.